All right, guys, hey, thanks for joining me this evening. How to get a return on investment for cover crops. Just once in my life, I go to all these conferences, I watch all these people on YouTube, I listen to all these speakers on the internet and chat rooms and forums. Just once, I'd love to hear a speaker get up there and say your biggest return on cover crops is because you're done doing tillage. Park all that crap and you're done. Or I'd love to hear a speaker get up there and say, you won't see it on your first year. That would be very fun. Excuse me. But let's be honest here. Let's look at this. Cover crops. So you want to get into cover crops? Where's the immediate return on investment? We'll get to some examples, but for the most part there aren't. Cover cropping is a long-term game, part of a systems approach that's going to include no-till or strip-till if you need that Band-Aid or crutch yet because of your soil, your farm. But if guys in the Red River Valley can use cover crops to get no-till to work, all bets are off. I'm not hearing no excuse from nobody. Because if you haven't been to the Red River Valley soil, you find a farmer out there, you call them, you send them 20 bucks and have them send you a cubic foot of that soil so you can play with it during the summer, because that will blow your mind if you're not used to soil like that. So, conventional tillage. What are we doing on conventional tillage? Well, the university gives conventional tillage a $30 cost over the no-till in their same scenarios and cash flows. I call BS huge on that one, because for my farm, for $30 an acre, I can't buy a horsepower tractor, I can't buy a disc ripper, and I can't buy a chisel plow, and I can't buy a finisher and a crumbler. I cannot line myself up to do full tillage on my farm for $30 an acre, let alone operate it and maintain it and repair it. But they give $30. I like university numbers. I trust their numbers. Doing full tillage, we are losing organic matter. We cannot build soil fast enough compared to what we are losing soil doing full tillage between wind and water erosion. That doesn't mean to say that you're going to get this guy, before you even say it, there, River Valley, Minnesota farmer, whoever you are, I know you're out there, you're just looking at me right now like, I've been tilling for 30 years and my organic matter is the same. Yep. It probably is. You are still losing topsoil faster than you are making topsoil. In a statistical scenario, statistically speaking, around the country, around the world, we are losing more topsoil due to wind and water erosion every year than we are generating on farms that are doing full tillage. That doesn't mean you are breaking down the organic matter in the soil you have. You are definitely not building any. You're only losing 2 pounds of P, 6-8 pounds of K, $4 a ton for every ton of soil leaving your farm. No big deal. Only thing is, where does that go? Into our ditches, into our streams, into the lakes. Who finds that out? Water quality people. They report it to the universities. They report it to water quality divisional people, whatever type of watershed people are in your area. And before you know it, we end up with things like called buffer laws. So, by doing your full tillage, how much water are you losing? How much tile do you need? How much irrigation do you need? I understand there's dry parts of the country that rely on irrigation because they get 10 inches for the year and it's not during their growing season. I get that. But there's a lot of parts of the country, southern Minnesota, western Minnesota, lots of the I-states have tremendous amount of waterfall that have irrigation on top of tile. To me, it seems you have a major soil health problem, not a tile and irrigation problem. You don't have a weather problem. I get weather patterns are changing. I'm living in them same changing weather patterns. But through soil health, we're trying to hold our water in the soil so when we get that little bit of a normal seasonal dry spell, we can carry through it better. I'm not talking extremes. Let's not be silly. Irrigation on top of tile. I can't laugh enough at some of them farms when I drive by. How about white mold, soybean cyst nematode, aphids, noxious weeds? What has conventional tillage done for that in the last 20 years? Has it fixed it? How has it fixed it? if you had white mold last year or 2 years ago, and now this year you're going back into that field with beans again, what'd you do since then? Well, you've tilled it, you've distributed the white mold around, you used a bunch of fungicide, and now you're going to come back with some more fungicide, and you've tilled it again, and maybe you lower population, you increase population, you change row spacing, you do something. Maybe you bought a very expensive injection system for your sprayer, so when you can map your field, so when you hit them spots, it can put out the extra fungicide for you. Or you could do a soil health system, but whatever. But how have you cured it? Plain and simple. How have you cured white mold? By doing the same thing every year. Same with soybean cysts, aphids, noxious weeds. How are we curing noxious weeds? We don't. We till them into the soil so the seed can sit there for 50 years. How about compaction? All our tillage, we create all this erosion to fight compaction. If the disc ripper fixed compaction, I ask this question every time, and I have yet to have anybody answer it. If the disc ripper fixed compaction last fall, how come you need to bring it out this fall or next fall? You fixed the compaction. Seems we're not fixing compaction. It seems that the disc ripper enables us to get compaction to have to pull the disc ripper again. Kind of seems like a silly cycle. Does it not? Cash flowing on conventional stuff. We got a negative $26 on corn, a positive $85 on beans. You might make $59 for the year per acre. After 10 years, if we look at the price of disc rippers over the last 20 years, they have tripled in price. Even if they only doubled in price in the last 20 years, that means in 10 years they'll be 100% more expensive. So what is the cost of all this tillage going to be in 10 years? Where's your farm in 10 years going to be doing on conventional till? You're still going to be looking for tile. You're going to be looking for water. You're going to be still losing potential soil. You're still going to be losing nutrients. What diseases and weed pressures are you going to have in 10 years? What about regulations? What regulations are you going to have in 10 years that we don't have today? A few years ago, nobody was talking about any regulations. Now we're talking about neonicotide regulations, nitrogen regulations, buffer law regulations. What do you think is going to happen in the next couple years? I'm pretty sure we're going to have some potash and phosphorus regulations with timing and application. It won't be long, and broadcast regulations are coming on, and timing of the year for applied nutrients are going to be coming along. So yeah, where's your cost going to be? In 10 years from now, doing what you're doing right now, are you going to be 20, 30, 50, 100% more expensive to do the same thing now? 20 years ago, 400 horse pulled that 18-foot ripper 12 inches deep. Before that, a 220 horse mechanical front pulled that 18-foot wide disc chisel 10 to 12 inches deep across the field. Now, 600 horse pulls the 18-foot wide disc ripper across the field, and you're going 16, 18 inches deep. So if that trend line keeps going, in 10 years, you're going to be at 900 horse to pull 18 feet, 2 feet, 2.5 feet deep through the soil, because that's just what the trend lines have been doing. Don't believe me, look it up. Think back to the history of farming. Where was the mold board? 6 to 8 inches. Where were disc chisels when they first came out? The old John Deere 714. They're 8 to 10 inches. Where were the early disc rippers? You know, the old DMIs, 10 to 12, even 14. Now the new Case 875s. Where are we at? 14, 16, 18. You know, maybe some people are already hitting 20. That's the trend that's happening. Or we spent $30 on cover, dump tillage. We're done with that crap. It's gone because it don't work here anymore. Full tillage don't work here anymore. I've proven that time and time again in my other videos. For a $30 cover crop, if we had cattle versus old grass to a cover crop seeded pasture, right out front, we're seeing 30% reduction around here. From farmers all around me and myself on my little experiment this year, but other big cattle guys, there's guys that are doing up over 400 head that right up front, by going from old grass to covers, immediately saw 30% less land needed per head. What does that mean? That's 30% of your land you now get a cash crop off of, or you get to store feed for because of extreme weather scenarios or whatever. There's guys that have reduced it over 50% in time. There's guys that have gone from 3 acres to 1 acre by the use of cover crops instead of old grass and good management with it. That's a huge reduction. That is a huge reduction for the cattle. But our fungicide, herbicide, insecticides, our diseases, our bugs and insects, what are we seeing on soil health? In my soybean and oats experiment, I saw I didn't have to put any fungicide. I used about $20 less herbicide because I didn't come out with that second big heavy pass to try and control water hemp. And I didn't have to worry about aphids on that field. The funny part was that field was loaded with bugs. The ground you walked through there were caterpillars everywhere. Not caterpillars, there was grasshoppers everywhere. But no aphids. Hardly even, go back and look at my video, there was hardly even leaves being eaten on the soybeans. The plants were healthy. Both the oats and the soybeans were very healthy. And no bugs were really bothering them. Didn't need fungicide. Probably still run insecticide and furrow just because of our manure history. We ended up with some wireworm, and wireworm is a fantastic predator to our seeds. So I still have to run a little bit of in-furrow insecticide until I figure out how to get that wireworm under control. I'm learning. So that's kind of fun. White mold, soybean cyst. I don't have white molds, knock on wood, but I'll clean them up because of crop rotation and diversity. Soybean cyst, that's easy. It'll be 10 years before I come back to soybeans with that field. In 10 years of soil health, there'll be no more soybean cyst nematodes out there, or it'll be so reduced that when I finally do come out with soybeans, it'll be a non-issue. Bugs. What about my water infiltration? I've already showed, you have my videos from last summer. We had 2.5 inches. We went up to the sand hill where we didn't even have crop growing. Just the fact that we had the previous year's root balls still intact. We had residue on the surface, no growing crop, and it didn't have any, even though I strip tilled through, no growing crop, 2 inches in a half hour, not any soil washed away. 4 hours in a day, a week later, 5 inches overnight, still zero washing down that hill. We walked across the road to the neighbors. We saw that same 5 inches tipped his knee-high corn over, buried the ditch full of residue, and washed the road across into my field. Who got the water into the ground on their farm? Seems to me that water going into my soil, instead of out some tile, might have helped a little bit. And it kind of showed on the yield of that field, because historically speaking, I can go back and show historically speaking on that field for the weather pattern we had, I should have had some more variance on the field. But because of soil health, our low production areas are really picking up. The fields are becoming very even. And so what's it mean if you have that low production area that historically speaking only made 20, 30, 40%? Yep, you could invest in variable rate fertility. You could invest in variable rate seeding. And boy, you could really start to make a profit in that area. We just did it with soil health. Now that area is producing 80% of the field average, and in a couple of years, it's going to be even more consistent with the field average. Potential income from the relay or double cropping. This is the one. So over here I asked, who on earth is silly enough to be doing tillage with cover crops? There's people out there that are like, well, I put in a cover crop, my corn showed no response, so I ripped it up this fall and I'll try again next year. Buddy, you're not even at home, you're not even dressed and ready to go to the game, let alone be in the game with that kind of mindset. This is the one spot that you could probably get away with it. You till your crop in the spring, till the soil, get your crop in, get your beans seeded and your spring wheat seeded. Pull out your spring wheat, pull out the beans, till on the backside. There you go. The wheat paid for the wheat seed there, and you reduced your herbicides and fungicides and insecticides there. I would not do it that way. I would just simply park the tillage and then interseed. But on our oats and beans, the potential of revenue there is we pulled an average soybean crop for that field. Plus, we had a very good, strong average oats crop off that field. And if I would have timed it better, or with a little more practice, like doing some winter wheat or winter rye into soybeans, I pull the winter rye off, I pull the soybeans off. I have already put in, before I combine the soybeans, I put out some oat seed. So behind the soybeans, I pull off a cutting of grass. Right now, local markets have grass, old crappy hay at, $80 a ton. They are fighting over hay in our area right now. A good quality oat grass bale, boom, it's 90 to 100 bucks a ton right now, and it is gone. You'll have people clawing for that. So an extra, even at a half a ton per acre of available grass at the end of the year, a half a ton, an extra 50 bucks. The soybean production paid for the production of the land that year. The winter wheat or winter rye, that's just pure cash. And the oats on top for an extra 50 bucks, plus no herbicide, fungicide, any of that garbage on there. I should stop talking about this because everybody's going to be getting into this. Potential premiums. The potential income from cover cropping and relay cropping, and then bringing the cattle into it, it just blows a guy's mind once you start seeing how it works. It's just like, why weren't we doing this 50 years ago? Well, in the 1930s we were, because you could buy an intercrop seeder from Oliver in 1930s. Potential premiums. Potential premiums, I have show next slide. Before I show the next slide, there's a bunch of companies that are on the next slide. They are developing a soil health system inside the company. So the farmers that sell goods to them will fill out this questionnaire. You get a soil health score. Based upon your score, part of their program will be to buy from the healthiest people first. The high score people is who they buy from first to fill their quotas. There might be also a price premium to go along with that. Everybody's still developing it now. So here's just a small list of companies that have started this. Have you ever heard of General Mills, Land O'Lakes, Campbell's Soup, Tyson Foods, Pepsi? Anybody hear of Pepsi? Wrangler Jeans? Well, any cotton growers out there that want to start doing some soil health cotton? Get a hold of Wrangler. Not even being funny, call Wrangler and ask them about it. Philip Morris, McDonald's, Nestle. A lot of frozen pizzas out there with Nestle stamp. Whole Foods, Blue Aprons, Cargill, Walmart, Coca-Cola, ADM. Anybody ever hear of them companies? Anybody already sell to any of them companies? You got Bonneville, Unilever, and Patagonia. At first I thought that was Topanga, the hot chick from Boy Meets World. Remember when you were a kid, She was hot when you were a kid. Yeah, for me, I'm going to be starting to contact these companies. I'm going to start calling them. Say, what products are you looking for? Here's my soil health score. Send me your questionnaire. I'll fill out your questionnaire. What products are you looking for right now that I could start growing for you? Plain and simple. There's a potential new market, because where we at on corn and beans, we're not. That's where we're at. We're not on corn and beans. They're not working out anymore. Conventionally, why? Because we have too many problems that make it way too expensive. I talked about the low production areas. 10 years from now, doing a soil health system, where are we going to be? Over here, we're still in the same boat. In 10 years from now, we've gained about a 1% organic matter. That's very conservative for some areas. That's a very extreme goal for other areas. For me, I would like to see 1% in 10 years. I honestly do. We're starting the 9-year study on that 90-acre field. It's going to be 9 years to get 3 years. Pasture gets 3 years on each of them fields, and each of them fields then will have 6 years of corn on corn with covers and grazing as well. In 10 years, we gain 1% organic matter. That gives us roughly 20 to 30 more N credits. What can you do with 20 to 30 more N credits? 1, 20 or 30 that you don't have to buy. 2, 20, 30, 50, 60 potential more bushels of crop to be grown. 4% more water. I don't know about you. Anybody that has that irrigation system out there, if you had 4% more water, what would that mean to your irrigation system? The NDSU calculator reduces nitrogen by 40% on their own little calculator just by having a long-term soil health thing on the calculator. They have it at 6 years, but I give it 10 just because we need a few years to figure crap out. After 6 years, you touch that button that you've got 6 good, solid, healthy years, and boom, your nitrogen is reduced by 40%. Right on their own calculator. How'd they get that? Years of research and data. Covers make the no-till work. I already talked about that. Maybe I did. I forget sometimes. The Red River Valley. So I met some guys in Red River Valley that it was a couple years after I had been in Drayton for a couple years digging 30-foot cofferdam holes up in Drayton. They got covers and no-till to work up in the Red River Valley. Now, if you're not from that soil or that area, like I say, get to that area, find a farmer, send them 20 bucks to send you a cubic foot of that soil. It's something to be reckoned with. But these guys tried no-till. They had to go away from no-till because it wasn't working. Now the idea of cover cropping came into their brain. So now they brought cover cropping in. That got their no-tilling to work. And now they have a whole system that works. It took a long time. It took a lot of work. It took a lot of management. It got them to work. Our soil, day one of no-till and cover cropping, you can see the response in the soil. There is no lag. The soil is just screaming more, 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 more. Our soil is just so hungry to have any amount of life and cover on it. It's crazy. But yeah, 10 years from now, cash flowing like a baller. I mean, we're going to have, 10 years from now, if you're bringing this whole system in, 10 years from now, what if we're Gabe Brown in this sucker? We are Gabe Brown in this sucker. We are buying 0 commercial fertilizers. We're growing free corn, free soybeans, and free small grains in rotation with our cattle. How does that not cash flow? Anybody? We're growing 9-10 bushels per inch of water. Boy, I'd love to see that here. 9 bushels of corn on an inch of water here. That puts me well over the 300 bushel mark on a lot of years. I'd love to see something close to that. In 10 years, we'll have the genetics capable of doing it. The way the weather patterns shift, and we might have the heat units to do it. I just need to get my soil in shape to do it. 10 years from now, this side, the soil health side, using cover crops, return on investment. Yeah, this presentation was real biased. I can't fathom how on earth, if you're watching this and you're like, covers just don't work, great. Hope you enjoyed the video. Not here to change your mind. But don't anybody ever tell me cover crops don't work here and they just never pay. Really? Conventional tillage doesn't pay, and cover crops and soil health work everywhere. Can you cover crop and strip till? You dang right you can. It works real good. Is it as good as no-till? Nope. But it works awesome. For me, going in behind the cattle, where you still have that big, thick, dense green mat in the spring, and you're not going to do a chemical burn down, you strip till through that sucker, that gives you that berm, that window of opportunity to get that corn growing, and then you just let it go from there. You don't need the herbicides, you don't need all that other stuff. Yep, we're tilling the soil a little bit, but that little bit of disturbance, you know, that 2-inch shank running through the soil, you got 26 inches undisturbed soil. That still means a huge benefit to that soil. Plus a lot of water infiltration for us. We've shown in our soil while we're trying to get on the other ground, while we're trying to get it into shape, how the strip till helps the water infiltration rate. Guys, I think this one went really well. How do cover crops pay? How do they not pay? How do they not? Unless you are just abstinent, or unless you are just absolutely stubborn to any change whatsoever, great. It's your farm. You do what you got to do. But covers have a massive return on investment. Day one is because you're not tilling anymore. You're parking all that equipment. Cover crops, they take care of the compaction for you. This spring we'll do some probing. I'll show you. So yeah, I'm going to leave it right there, guys. Anything I forgot, you put it down below. If you got covers working good for you, you're increasing your organic matter, you're increasing soil health, leave your story below. Your view of return on investment of covers, your experience of return on investment covers, leave the story below. Thank you very much, guys.